The topic for today's episode is a fascinating aspect of human psychology, and it's applicable to all relationships you have formed so far in your life and you will form in the days to come. Make sure you check it out till the very end. Let's get into it. Alright, let's build on our series of cognitive biases today. And the bias that I'm going to talk about in this episode is actually a slightly different one compared to the normal ones that I usually cover. The one that I'm talking about is called the fundamental attribution error. I know it sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but I personally feel it is one of the easiest ones to understand. But like any bias, it's still hard to accept, right? What does it mean? In very simple terms, the fundamental attribution error is that whenever we find ourselves in a situation, we tend to put the blame for that situation on external factors, such as the situation itself, the environment, or any host of other external factors. But when we find another person in the same or a similar situation, we tend to put the blame on them. At least our first instinct is that. This is the fundamental attribution error. For example, let's say you were late in turning up your work or submitting your assignment. Your narrative could be that I'm not the one to blame, the situation was such and such, and that is why I got late, right? But if you look at it the other way around, maybe you are the manager or maybe you are the teacher. In both these situations, your first instinct when you see a person turning in the work late would be that this person is the one to blame, right? This, in a nutshell, is the fundamental attribution error. And I think it should be very obvious to you why it's so important to understand this. You see, attribution errors such as this really do reveal a striking fact about us, that we are more inclined towards finding faults in others than we are towards finding our own faults. And as any adult in the room would tell you, that is a slippery slope to fall into in any relationship you are in, personal, professional, casual, either, right? So now let's talk about 3 ways to help avoid falling prey to this error. Advice number 1, and the most important one, would be to not simply go with the first emotional reaction you have to any situation, right? It's as simple as that. And I think this is generally applicable to almost all biases we talk about on this podcast. Because, the first reaction that you give to any situation, it is usually conditioned by how you see things, how you perceive things, right? And while it could be true, it's also very likely to be biased, right? So it always helps to slow down, take a deep breath, and look for facts and not simply go with the first instinctive reaction you get. Advice number 2, and almost an equally important one, is do not shy away from recognizing your mistakes. Even if you have not acted on the error, even if you have not acted on your first emotional reactions, sometimes it's hard to recognize and accept that your first emotional reaction, your first instinctive reaction was wrong. So if that happens with you, before or after having committed the error, just realize that it's okay, it's human to be wrong at times, accept your mistakes, take the corrective action that you need to take, and move on. As simple as that. And the third and final advice would be to become more emotionally intelligent. At the end of the day, all of life is about interpersonal relationships, right? You have to deal with people throughout your life. So it always helps to become more understanding about your own emotions and parallelly about the emotions of other people, right? So if you become more emotionally intelligent, you get to respond to situations in a much more mature and a much more empathetic fashion. And that always helps. So with that, we come to the end of today's episode. I think I covered everything I wanted to, and I covered it in a short span of time, I guess. If this resonated with you, if there are any doubts, if there are any things that you want to talk about in detail with me, you can reach out to me via all the links available in the show notes or even in the comments section if you're consuming this on YouTube. And if this resonated with you, I would recommend one more episode of mine where I was actually talking about another fact of our lives which we usually miss out on, but it is something which is fundamentally important to our people skills, something called regression to the mean. Make sure you check out that episode. Until next time, peace out.